My name is Ava Reed. I'm 29, and on the day my son turned 7, I learned exactly where my family had placed us on their priority list. By 8:22 a.m., my mom had called me 29 times. Mason kept running between the front door and the backyard, hair still damp from his too-fast shower, the blue t-shirt he chose last night already tucked just a little crooked into his shorts. He helped me set out paper plates and laughed every time a balloon squealed under my fingers. He wrote name tags for his cousins on old index cards because he said, "It feels more official that way." He even saved the biggest slice of cake for his cousin Cody because Cody always wants the corner with the most frosting. We waited. I checked my phone. Nothing. At 11:10, Mason peered up at me, serious. "Maybe Grandma's car broke down?" "Maybe," I said, and arranged napkins that didn't need arranging. In my stomach, something colder than worry began to form. By sunset, the hot dogs on the grill had gone cold. The paper tablecloth sighed in the wind. Mason sat on the porch steps with his "Welcome, fam" sign slumping against his knee, the marker bleeding a little where he'd pressed too hard. I asked if he wanted a movie night, just us. He nodded, brave in that small way kids are when they think they're helping you hold the sky up. I went inside to clean, made the mistake of opening the family group chat. The first photo hit like a door slamming. Cody grinning, sparkler in hand, in front of a pirate ship cake big enough to have its own zip code. Swipe. A bounce house. Kids midair, socks flung like confetti. Swipe. A magician in a top hat, pulling an actual rabbit from a hat while my mother clapped, my father flipped burgers. Neighbors I recognized cheered. Everyone was there. Everyone but us. Mason drifted in behind me, curious. He saw the pirate cake, the lights, the faces, his faces, and the 2 words he managed came like a whisper with a crack in it. "Why not mine?" I couldn't speak. I set the phone down like it might break us both and said, "Pick any movie." But the image kept flashing behind my eyes. My sister Haley's text a week ago. "No birthdays this year. Money's tight. Thanks for understanding." I had believed her. I had told Mason that not everyone could throw a party every year, that love wasn't measured in balloons. I had nodded at "money's tight" without mentioning the 2 rent envelopes I'd quietly covered the last 2 months without a thank you, just the assumption I always would. The second envelope sat on my counter like a dare. I picked it up, snapped a photo, and dropped it into the family chat. Below it, I typed 2 words. "Return to sender." Then I set the phone face down and started gathering plates. When I finally glanced again, the calls had begun to stack, my mother's number rising and falling like a siren. Voicemails multiplied, the first sounding confused, the next offended, the last dripping righteousness. "This is unfair to Cody." Not one voice said Mason. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and turned on the Iron Giant for Mason because he likes when the giant says, "You stay, I go, no following." He curled under his blanket with his stuffed panda and didn't ask another question. When the credits rolled and his breathing shifted into sleep, my phone buzzed again. Lucas, my boyfriend. He'd texted earlier, "How's the party? Need me to swing by after the work dinner?" And I'd replied with a thumbs up and a promise of leftover cake. Now there was a new message. Running late. Old project contact showed up. It's Paige. Don't freak. She just wanted to say hi. Paige. His ex. I stared at the name. A flash of my reflection caught in the black glass. Somewhere in me, a small ledger opened and silently noted it. Paige plus work dinner plus don't freak. I typed, "We'll be asleep. Good night." Then I powered the phone down completely. Morning came with a quieter house and a louder truth. I made coffee, watched sunlight pull lines across the floor, and thought about how clean avoidance can look when it's dressed in family and good intentions. I thought about how often I had been useful instead of loved. My mother called again. I let it ring out. 29 missed calls before 8:22 a.m., like guilt bricks laid at my feet, a foundation for a house I didn't want to live in anymore. At noon, Haley texted privately, "Are you really cutting us off over a misunderstanding?" I left it on read. 5 hours later, "You could have just asked. We weren't trying to hurt you. We didn't think Mason would notice." I stared at that line until it went blurry. We didn't think Mason would notice. He had noticed everything. The way kids do, first with questions, then with silence when answers don't arrive. I opened my banking app, scrolled, and the pattern fell into place. Spotify Premium, Amazon Prime, 3 kids' game subscriptions tied to an iPad we didn't own, grocery deliveries from a store 2 towns away, months of just until the new job kicks in, never canceled, never mentioned again, my card, my name. I canceled them one by one, each, are you sure? A little cleaner than the last. I changed passwords, yanked back the shared logins. Then I called the phone carrier and removed Haley and Ryan from the family plan I had been funding for years. The rep asked, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes." It felt like pulling threads from a sweater that had always been too tight. The next morning, a text from an unknown number. My phone got shut off. "Seriously? What the hell, Ava?" I didn't respond. Another bubble from Haley's email. "You're punishing me for something we didn't mean to do. Cody is crying because he can't FaceTime his friends. You've made your point. Can we stop now?" There it was again. We didn't mean to. As if the lack of intent rewrote the outcomes. As if empty chairs were an accident, not a choice. 2 days later, my mother showed up on my porch unannounced, arms folded like a courtroom. I opened the door halfway and waited. "You're being dramatic," she began, eyes already sweeping my living room, measuring how much of me she still owned. "Haley is overwhelmed. Cody is sensitive. You're hurting a child to make a point." "Bring the gift Mason never got," I said evenly, "and we can talk inside." She blinked. "Don't weaponize a simple oversight. Don't sanitize a deliberate omission." Her mouth tightened. She turned and walked back to her car without looking back. The part of me that still tried to make her feel comfortable shrank another size. The rest of me felt something click into place. Not anger, not revenge. Clarity. That afternoon, the group chat thrummed like nothing had happened. Brunch photos at Haley's, a poll about who could host Thanksgiving, plans for matching shirts again for the cousins' Christmas photo. No tag for me, no mention of Mason. A week later, Haley tried one more angle. "So, are you really cutting us off over a misunderstanding?" I said nothing, because this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the map they'd been drawing for years, and I'd finally stopped pretending the border wasn't there. That night, I tucked Mason in. He asked if he should invite Cody next year or if it would be too awkward. The word didn't fit his small mouth. I told him real family isn't measured in last names or group chats. He nodded, then leaned into his panda. When he slept, I took out the rent envelope. I wrote "Return to Sender" in thick, dark ink. I sealed it with tape so it couldn't accidentally open on the way. Then I opened a new note on my phone and typed a single line, a reminder to myself for the days I might want to fold. When the guy who always says yes starts saying nothing at all, listen to who notices. I turned the phone face down, switched off the porch light, and stood in the doorway for a breath. The house behind me was quiet. The yard still held a bit of confetti in the grass, bright and stubborn. I left it there. The next morning started like any other, except for the silence. The kind that hums in the background when people are planning what to say about you instead of to you. By 8:22 a.m., my phone showed 29 missed calls from my mother, 6 from Haley, 2 from my father, one of them a butt dial probably. The voicemail queue was a layered symphony of guilt. The first one, my mother sounded confused. The second, offended. By the third, she'd found her rhythm. Tight voice, sharp breath, a professional in the art of moral outrage. "Ava, what is this about? Haley is devastated. Cody's in tears. This is unfair to the children. You're being cruel." Not a single mention of Mason, not one. By noon, I'd brewed 3 cups of coffee and finished none. Something in me had started to detach, like I was watching my own life from across the room. I opened my banking app, scrolled through transactions, and there it was. Spotify Premium, Amazon Prime, Apple Arcade, 3 separate game subscriptions, all tied to an old email I recognized immediately. Haley's. Then came the grocery charges, Doorstep Mart, Greenwise Grocers, delivery fees from stores 2 towns away. The payment card listed? Mine. I sat there staring at the screen, a laugh escaping before I could stop it. A dry, humorless sound. Almost a year ago, I'd added my card to her account when they were having a rough patch. She'd promised to remove it when Ryan's job started. She hadn't. They never do. People who thrive on convenience never remember the hand that fed them, only the moment it stops. I spent the next hour canceling everything. Click by click. Passwords reset. Access revoked. Spotify asked, "Are you sure you want to cancel?" "Yes," I whispered. each confirmation like cutting another thread that had kept me tethered. When I was done, I leaned back and let the quiet settle. It felt strange, cleaner somehow. But I wasn't finished. Because when you start peeling back the layers of generosity, you find all the little hooks people left in you to keep you reachable. I called the phone carrier next. 4 lines. Mine, Mason's, Haley's, and Ryan's. The representative sounded polite, confused. Are you sure you want to remove them? I'm sure. 3 hours later, Haley texted from a new number. My phone got shut off. Seriously? What the hell, Ava? No hello, no apology, just indignation. I didn't answer. 15 minutes later, an email pinged through. You're punishing me for something we didn't mean to do. Cody's crying because he can't FaceTime his friends. You've made your point. Can we stop now? We didn't mean to. It was their favorite shield. As if intent erased impact. As if carelessness was gentler when it came with a smile. I closed the laptop. I'd seen enough. 2 days later, a knock. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother standing there, cardigan draped over her shoulders like armor, her purse clutched like evidence. I opened the door halfway. She smiled, tight, brittle. Can we talk? Sure, I said. If you brought the gift Mason never got. Her smile cracked. Ava, don't start with this petty nonsense. Then don't come to my house pretending this is about reconciliation. You came to lecture, not listen. Her chin lifted, the way it always did before she weaponized a sigh. You're blowing this out of proportion. Haley was overwhelmed. Cody's birthday was spontaneous. Spontaneous? I asked. They hired a magician and rented a bounce house. She blinked, regrouping. You know how family is. Things happen. Right, I said quietly. Things happen. And people happen to us. She looked past me, eyes scanning the living room like she expected to see chaos that would justify her being there. Instead, she found everything in its place. Her tone softened. You can't hold grudges forever. You know how much family means to Mason. He needs to learn forgiveness. I took a slow breath. No, Mom, he needs to learn what respect looks like. That silenced her. For a second, I thought she might actually see it, the weight behind those words. But then she exhaled, the performance over. If you keep this up, you'll regret it. Maybe, I said, but at least the regret will be mine. She left without another word. After she drove away, Mason came in from the yard, clutching his stuffed panda. He asked if Grandma was coming back. I knelt down to his level. Not today, buddy. He nodded slowly, the way kids do when they understand more than they should. Then he changed the subject. Can we make pancakes tomorrow? I smiled. Yeah, we can. That night, after he went to bed, I found myself staring at my phone, thumb hovering over the family group chat. They were still talking, pretending the rupture didn't exist. Photos of brunch at Haley's, a poll about Thanksgiving, a meme about forgiveness being a strength. No one mentioned Mason. No one mentioned the party. It was as if they'd scrubbed us out of the timeline. So I left the chat quietly. No announcement, no drama, just gone. A few days later, my dad texted for the first time in months. Don't let this get worse. Be the bigger person. I stared at the screen. That phrase, be the bigger person, it always meant the same thing in our family. Keep taking the hits so we don't have to look at what we've done. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my camera roll. Scrolled until I found the picture I hadn't deleted yet. Mason sitting on the porch that day, his little welcome fam sign resting on his lap. I stared at it for a long time. Then I whispered to the empty room, being the bigger person isn't the same as being the only one who cares. The next week, things grew quieter. Haley stopped texting. Mom didn't call. Even the group chat I'd left went strangely dormant. But silence can be deceptive. It's not peace, it's planning. And somewhere deep down, I knew the next move was coming. Because people who need you to be their safety net don't let you cut the cords without a fight. And I was ready. It came on a Saturday morning. One of those slow, honey-colored ones, where the world feels calm enough to trick you into forgetting it owes you nothing. Mason was out on the porch feeding stale cereal to a squirrel he'd named Captain Crunch. He came running back inside, holding a heavy cream envelope like it was treasure. Mom, we got invited to something. My stomach turned before I even looked. I recognized the wax seal on the back, my mother's signature touch, the same one she used for Christmas cards and formal family events, as if our small Ohio clan was some kind of royal court. I took the envelope gently, pretending to read it with curiosity instead of dread. The handwriting wasn't hers, though. It was Haley's. The return address? Ocean View Resort, Florida. I already knew what it was before I even opened it. Inside, gold-trimmed paper, cursive lettering, every flourish dripping with self-congratulation. Haley and Ryan invite you to join them for a beachfront wedding celebration. Dress code, elevated coastal. RSVP by the 12th. We hope to celebrate with our loved ones. Loved ones. My breath caught somewhere between a laugh and a gasp. A full wedding. A destination one. The same sister who had texted, "Money's tight, no birthdays this year," was now throwing a beach ceremony with a catering menu and a signature cocktail named after her dog. Mason peeked up at me, grinning. "Can we go?" I smiled back, the kind of smile that lies for protection. "It's junk mail, buddy. Mix up." He accepted it easily because kids still believe their mothers can edit reality. When he ran back outside, I read the invitation again, 3 times. Then I flipped the envelope over and realized something that twisted the knife further. It wasn't even addressed to me. It was addressed to the previous tenants, the family who'd lived here before us. They hadn't meant to send it, they just hadn't updated the mailing list. We were ghosts who got an invitation meant for someone else. That night, after Mason was asleep, I set the invitation on the kitchen table and stared at it under the dim light. My first instinct was to throw it away. My second was stronger. I opened my laptop, searched Haley plus Ryan wedding registry, and there it was, a catalog of expensive tastes disguised as new beginnings. Crystal stemware, designer luggage, a $900 copper cookware set from a luxury brand that promised legacy quality for generations. Legacy. That word hit like a joke only I understood. So I bought it. Not for them, for me. When it arrived 3 days later, I sliced the box open, ran my hand over the copper surface, and snapped a picture of it gleaming in my kitchen. Then I texted the photo to Haley with one line. For the bride who couldn't afford to show up for her nephew. No response. 20 minutes later, my mom's name appeared on my screen. "Ava, this isn't the way. You're doing too much." Too much. The woman who raised me on sacrifice now said that drawing a line was too much. I didn't reply. Instead, I listed the cookware for sale online, sold it the same day for $650 cash. And with that, I booked a lakeside cabin for the same weekend as Haley's wedding. 2 nights, small kitchen, wooden deck, overlooking calm water. It was perfect. When the wedding weekend arrived, Mason and I packed up fishing poles, snacks, and a cooler full of homemade lemonade. On the drive there, he asked, "Is it okay that we're not going?" "Going where?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. He shrugged. "Wherever the envelope was from." "Yeah," I said, "it's more than okay." We got to the lake just before sunset. The air smelled like pine and possibility. Mason wore the blue hoodie he'd wanted to show Cody months ago, back when family still meant invitations instead of omissions. He stood on the dock with his little fishing rod, the evening light melting gold over the water. I took a photo, not for anyone else, just for memory. That night, while Haley was probably raising champagne glasses to applause and flash photography, I posted the photo on my social media. No caption, no tags. Just Mason smiling free of expectation. The silence that followed online was louder than any confrontation. No texts, no comments. Just absence. That strange, echoing kind of quiet when people finally realize they've lost their audience. 3 days later, after unpacking our bags, I found the copper cookware receipt in my inbox. I opened it, stared at the total, and smiled. That $900 set had done its job twice. Once when I bought it, once when I sold it. It had paid for something priceless, a weekend where Mason didn't wait for anyone to show up. But peace in my family is like a tide. It always recedes before you can name it. A week after the wedding, I got a call from my cousin Dan, the one person in our bloodline who's allergic to drama. He didn't even say hello, just, "You got 5 minutes? This is awkward." I leaned against the counter. "Always." He hesitated. "I didn't realize you weren't at the wedding until people started asking about Mason at the reception." My jaw tightened. "What did they say?" "Haley told everyone you were traveling for work. Said you needed space from family stuff." I let him talk. I could hear the discomfort in his voice. "Some of us didn't buy it," he added quickly. "It felt rehearsed." Then the next morning at brunch, she started asking around about help for their honeymoon. "Help?" He sighed. "Yeah, like financially. Apparently she had a list. Your name was on it." I closed my eyes. Even now, they still saw me as the bank that never closed. "Thanks for telling me, Dan," I said quietly. "I thought you should know." He hesitated, then said, "They added you back to the family group chat this morning." Sure enough, when I checked, I was back in. No explanation, no apology. Just hundreds of unread messages, mostly photos from the wedding, everyone glowing and golden. And buried in the middle of them, A post from Haley. She tagged me directly. We know things have been tense lately, but we're hoping to move forward. We're still family, and life's too short to hold grudges. If anyone wants to help with our honeymoon fund, here's the link. No pressure, just love. I read it twice, then again. The audacity was almost breathtaking. I didn't comment. I didn't argue. I just scrolled to my photo roll, found that picture of Mason sitting on the porch the day of his empty birthday, holding that slumped welcome fam sign. I uploaded it to the group chat. Underneath, I typed one sentence. Don't worry about the honeymoon fund. You've already spent everything I had to give. Then I hit send, left the chat, and this time, I blocked the admin so they couldn't add me back. 10 minutes later, Dan texted again. That photo hit hard. Grandma cried. I stared at the screen for a long time before setting the phone down. No satisfaction, no regret, just quiet. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was closing the book. And for once, it stayed closed. For about 2 weeks, everything went quiet. No messages, no calls, no guilt-laced voicemails. Just silence. The kind that's too careful, too calculated. Then the whispers began. My cousin Dan warned me first. They're rewriting the story, he said over the phone. You didn't cut them off. You're just going through a hard time. Going through a hard time. The euphemism families use when the truth makes them uncomfortable. Because we ignored her child's birthday and she finally stopped cleaning up after us doesn't make a very sympathetic headline. I thanked Dan, told him not to get dragged in, and hung up. But the damage was already rippling through the group like smoke. My Aunt Marie texted, "We missed you at the wedding. Hope you're feeling better." Better than what? I thought. Better than betrayal? Better than silence disguised as love? I didn't respond. A few days later, a friend from high school sent a screenshot from Facebook. Haley had posted a reflection about forgiveness, tagged half the family, and attached a photo of her holding Cody by the ocean. Family isn't perfect, but it's forever. Some people just need time to heal. Dozens of comments underneath. Beautiful. So true. Sending love. Not one person asked who the some people were. They didn't have to. By the end of that week, the revision was complete. I wasn't the sister who had been lied to, excluded, or drained. I was the bitter one, the dramatic one, the woman going through something. It would have been easier to just ignore it. But then Dan called again, voice lower this time. Just so you know, he said, Haley and Ryan had a post-wedding brunch. They asked for help paying for the honeymoon. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Of course they did. She had a list, he added. You were on it. That stopped me cold. Even after everything, I was still a line item in her mental ledger, the reliable provider she could count on, no matter how much she'd taken. That night, I scrolled back through my messages, rereading Haley's old texts. The no birthdays this year, the money's tight, the you're doing too much. Each one was a thread in a web of excuses, a language built on taking. And suddenly, I realized something that made me pause. They didn't actually want me back. They just wanted the version of me who never said no. So I gave them something else instead. Not words, not explanations. Proof. I opened the 4 reference folder on my laptop, the one where I'd been collecting every screenshot, every receipt, every message since the night of Mason's birthday. I added a title to the document. Timeline of events, Reed family. Then I saved it to a cloud drive and sent 1 copy to myself, 1 to Dan, just in case anyone ever tried to twist the story again. The next morning, my mother called. I didn't answer, but her voicemail said enough. Ava, honey, can we please put this behind us? Life's too short to stay angry. We all make mistakes. Her voice trembled at the edges, not with guilt, but with exhaustion from having to sound like the peacemaker. I replayed the message once, then deleted it. Life is short, yes. Too short to spend it waiting for people who never show up. A week later, another text, this time from Ryan, my brother-in-law. Look, I don't know what Haley said or what your deal is, but she's really upset. If you want to be part of the family again, someone has to make the first move. Don't let this go too far. The family again. The phrase sat there like a bruise pressed too hard. I stared at it, fingers hovering above the keyboard. Then I typed. Tell her this. I didn't walk away from family. I just finally accepted the invitation you gave me when you didn't show up for Mason. You made the first move. I just stopped standing still. Then I hit send, blocked his number, and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, something felt lighter. Not relief exactly, more like the absence of a noise I'd gotten too used to hearing. The calls didn't come. The texts stopped. The silence wasn't a punishment anymore. It was peace. Thanksgiving rolled around, and for the first time in years, my phone didn't light up with reminders or recipes or family plans. No invite, no guilt, nothing. Mason didn't even ask about them this time. Instead, he asked if his friend Liam from school could come over. They spent the day building a fort out of couch cushions and eating burnt cookies we both pretended were perfect. Later, as I watched them laugh under a blanket fort lit by fairy lights, I realized something simple. You don't rebuild peace by chasing people. You rebuild it by choosing who gets to sit at your table. A few days later, a new message pinged on Facebook from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Jenny, Haley's old college roommate. Hey, Ava, I was at the wedding. Heard what happened, or at least the version Haley told. Just wanted to say, I never believed it. I remember how you used to help her back in college when she couldn't pay rent. You were always the one who showed up. I guess people forget the hands that held them when they get comfortable. Anyway, I hope you're doing okay. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the message. Not because it hurt, but because it was proof that the truth always has witnesses, even if they stay quiet for a while. I wrote back one line. I'm better now. Thanks for seeing me. Then I closed the app, turned off my phone, and sat in the quiet. This time the silence didn't feel like exile. It felt earned. Winter came early that year, the kind of cold that made the air feel sharper, cleaner, like it wanted to cut away everything unnecessary. That's how it felt inside me, too. No calls, no texts, no half-hearted peace offerings wrapped in Bible verses about forgiveness. Just quiet. And for the first time in my life, I didn't mistake quiet for loneliness. Mason adjusted faster than I expected. He stopped drawing his cousins in his art projects, stopped checking the mailbox for cards that would never come. His world had shrunk, but it had also become clearer. He'd started inviting friends over instead. Jacob, Liam, a few kids from school. They'd take over the living room, build forts, eat too many marshmallows, and laugh until their sides hurt. One night, after they had all gone home, Mason climbed into my lap with his panda and asked, Mom, if they don't call, does that mean they don't love us anymore? I took a breath before answering. No, sweetheart, it means they don't know how. He nodded, the way kids do when they understand more than they should. Then he said something that gutted me. That's okay, I can teach them someday. I kissed his forehead, knowing I'd spend the rest of my life trying to make sure he never had to. December came and went without a single mention of Christmas plans. The family group chat remained locked, frozen in the same golden images from Haley's wedding. I didn't rejoin. Instead, I started building new rituals. Hot chocolate before bed, late-night drives to see neighborhood lights, dinner with friends who brought dessert unasked, people who showed up because they wanted to, not because obligation demanded it. One of them was Lucas. He showed up on my doorstep one Friday evening, holding takeout and looking nervous. I know I said Paige showed up that night, he began, but I didn't tell you everything. She wanted to meet again, talk. I said no. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I realized something, he said. I was starting to sound like them. Your family, expecting you to understand instead of being honest. And I don't want to be that kind of person. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was real, and real was enough. We sat on the couch, sharing noodles and quiet. Mason wandered out half asleep, climbed between us, and mumbled, You smell like dinner. Lucas laughed softly. Is that good or bad? Good, Mason said, then fell asleep before Lucas could answer. And just like that, something fragile but hopeful settled in the room. A few weeks later, I got one final message, from Ryan, of all people. Look, Haley's been crying. The family's worried. If you want things to go back to normal, someone has to reach out first. Don't make her do it. She's too hurt. I stared at the text for a long moment. Then I typed back slowly. Normal was me apologizing for things I didn't do. Normal was Mason waiting on a porch that stayed empty. You can keep normal. I'm choosing peace. Then I hit send, blocked the number, and never looked back. The following spring, Mason and I went back to the lake, the same one where we'd spent Haley's wedding weekend. He stood on the dock again, a little taller this time, holding the same small fishing pole. Do you think they'll ever say sorry? He asked. I shook my head. Maybe, maybe not. He grinned. That's okay, I'm not mad anymore. Neither was I. Back home, I opened my laptop one last time and scrolled through the old folder labeled For Reference. Screenshots, receipts, messages. Proof of every lie they'd told and every silence they'd spun. I hesitated, then dragged the folder into the recycle bin, clicked delete, because I didn't need evidence anymore. I had peace, and peace was proof enough. That night, Mason fell asleep on the couch watching a movie, his head resting against my arm. The TV flickered soft light across the room, and for once, I didn't feel like anything was missing. I thought about everything I'd lost: parents, siblings, holidays, history. Then I looked at the boy beside me and realized I hadn't lost anything that mattered. I'd just stopped fighting to keep what didn't love me back. I posted one final thing on social media before heading to bed: a simple photo of the lake at dusk, water still as glass, captioned only, "Sometimes family is what's left after the noise fades." No tags, no comments, just truth. Because the best revenge wasn't anger. It was peace, presence, and the ability to finally stop explaining.